Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Bird Carvajal, and I am the Executive Director of Impact Fund. Welcome to Florida Thriving. Impact Fund is the Florida chapter of the American Business Immigration Coalition. Our mission is to advance common sense federal and state immigration policies to grow the economy, create jobs, and keep families together. Today, you will hear from bipartisan lawmakers, CEOs, university presidents, dreamers, TPS holders, and essential workers. Florida has been long home to a large number of immigrants, many of whom hail from the Caribbean. 1 in 5 residents in the state was born in another country. Together, immigrants make up more than a quarter of Florida's labor force. As neighbors, business owners, taxpayers, and workers, immigrants are an integral part of Florida's diverse and thriving communities and make extensive contributions that benefit us all. To introduce the purpose of today's summit, please welcome our chairman, Mr. Mike Fernandez.
Thank you, Kathy. Greatly appreciated. And good morning to each and every one of you. My name is Mike Fernandez. I am also involved with Impact and ABIC, the 2 organizations that are sponsoring today's summit. Today, we're kicking off a campaign called Florida Thriving, who's working with employers, businesses, faith groups, and university presidents. And we are here to ask Senator Scott and Senator Rubio and the entire Florida delegation to support Bipartisan Immigration Solutions, which the majority of Americans support today. Our bottom line for this meeting and for the next few months is that immigration should change during 2021. To remain as it is simply unacceptable. Florida Thriving advances a bipartisan vision of immigration reform for a nation that has historically been a welcoming nation. Florida's immigrants are involved in building the powerhouses in agricultural, restaurants, tourism, both low-tech and high-tech jobs. Our contribution improves the lives of all of us in Florida. Florida residents need immigration reform for dreamers, those who came without any efforts on their own but brought in by their parents, for TPS holders, agricultural and essential workers. More than 70% of migrants who are essential workers work in the front lines in Florida. If allowed to do their job, this new legal residents in the near future will add between 750,000 to 900,000 new jobs to our state. Immigration is popular, not only among the Democrats, but also among the Republicans. According to the Fox News report, more than 75% of Americans approve of immigration reform. That includes 89% of Democrats and 57% of Republicans. Even the Trump supporters, in the vast majority, support changes in immigration. Look, it's a no-brainer, and I'll speak to you off the cuff. I am a Cuban American. I was born in Cuba and came here as an immigrant, but I was treated differently than how we treat immigrants today. Our nation, the great United States of America, gave 2 million newly arrived Cubans a generous immigration policy. It gave us green cards on arrival. It gave us a path to citizenship within 5 years of arrival. This gave us the security and the solid footing that we did not have to be looking over our shoulders to see if we were in chase by immigration law. This generosity allowed us to unleash our economic potential to the fullest, and that reflects on today's Florida economic powerhouse position, and especially on our contribution in the South Florida and Central Florida market. If this policy has worked for the Cuban Americans, and it has worked for the Cuban Americans, it should work for Mexicans, to Haitians, to Chinese, and all other non-criminal immigrants that are coming to our nation. So let us be realistic and be fair. We're not special. I certainly am not. And our contribution is clear because of the generosity of a generous policy. Let's give it to all of those who have earned it.
Thank you so much, Mike. Now we are going to hear from another Impact Board member, Tony Argiz from BDO. Tony?
Good morning. After listening to Mike, I'm also an immigrant, and I can remember when I came to this country, the open arms that I saw in Tampa, Florida, and I love to see that again because it's in the spirit and the heart of our country. But today, I like to first introduce our speaker. And good morning again, and thank you for joining us. And it's a real honor to introduce an individual who's been a longtime supporter of South Florida's immigrant community, Archbishop Thomas Wenski, Bishop of the Archdiocese of Miami, and also the shepherd of millions of Catholics like me in this area. Not only has he been an advocate for those seeking refuge in the United States, including most notably the Haitian community. Not only did he concurrently serve as pastor of 3 Haitian parishes in the Archdiocese, he became ingrained in their culture, traveling to the country to learn Creole. It is this passion that has made Archbishop Wenski have an even greater impact in inspiring compassion and change. Please join me in welcoming Archbishop Thomas Wenski.
Thank you for having me and inviting me to offer a short prayer at the beginning of this conference. Unfortunately, I will not be able to stay through the entire conference because I have another board meeting with some other bishops of the state of Florida. But I'd like to call your attention to a work of art that is displayed temporarily at Miami's Bayfront Park that depicts migrants of all times and all places in an arc. It is entitled Angels Unawares. It reminds us of the humanity of the migrant and that the history of migration is our history as well. We all are in the same boat. So let us pray and reflect on the words of Holy Scripture found in the letter to the Hebrews. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Let us pray. Merciful God, we pray for families and individuals who have left or fled their homes, seeking safer and better lives. We lift up to you their hopes, their fears and needs, that they may be protected on their journeys, their dignity and rights may be honored and upheld, and that they may be welcomed with open arms into generous and compassionate communities. Amen. And may the Lord give you a very fruitful and successful meeting today. May we move the needle forward for justice for all immigrants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Archbishop. Your leadership on immigration reform is unparalleled. And thank you to Michael Hill and Ashley Feasley at the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops for being an incredible national partner to ABIC. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca Shi, and I am the Executive Director of the American Business Immigration Coalition. Impact is our Florida chapter, and we are so grateful to partner with Kathy and the entire Impact Board, Mike Fernandez, Tony Argiz, Paul Damari, Al Cardenas, and many of our co-chairs. ABIC has over 1,200 employers and associations across 13 states. Our goal is common sense federal immigration reform. It is my sincere hope that today we can deepen our understanding of the critical role immigrants play in Florida's economy, gain a greater appreciation for their contributions to the health and stability of our communities, and come away with solid policy proposals on which we can all agree. Immigration issues are complex, but polls show there are at least a few areas where a majority of American voters agree. A path to lawful status for our dreamers, TPS workers, farm workers, and essential workers on the front lines of the pandemic recovery. For the sake of our food supply chain, healthcare system, and overall quality of life, we must bring our immigration system into the 21st century. In addition to Florida Thriving, ABIC hosts regional conferences with CEOs and university presidents and faith leaders across the country. Our bottom line is doing nothing in 2021 is unacceptable. It is our sincere hope that leaders like Senators Rubio and Scott and the entire Florida delegation will step up and step forward to join us and the overwhelming majority of Americans to support common sense bipartisan reform. Now, I am thrilled to introduce Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, Republican Congressman representing South Florida, to share a few remarks. The Congressman is a bridge builder and a problem solver. He is the lead champion, sponsor, and negotiator for the Farm Workforce Modernization Act that passed the House last year with overwhelming bipartisan support. We hope senators from both parties will quickly adopt this common sense bipartisan bill to bring stability to our growers, our food supply chain, and our workforce. Please give a warm welcome to Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart.
Thank you for the invitation to participate in this event. I think we can all agree that our immigration system is broken and that it finally needs to be fixed. And we need common sense legislation. It must secure our borders to protect our national security interests. It needs to allow those living in the shadows to earn a way to come forward and earn a way to get right with the law. It needs to strictly adhere to the rule of law. It needs to help bolster and create jobs and help our economy. Also needs a permanent solution to those here who are here long-term under either TPS or DED. And we also need a permanent solution for the dreamers who are here by no fault of their own and who have not broken the law. They deserve to finally have a permanent and legal solution and not just become a political football to be played with, as has happened so many times. Many key industries in Florida are impacted by immigration, whether frankly by this broken immigration system that we have. Let me just mention one. An immigration system that works is hugely, greatly important to our agriculture industry in the state of Florida. That industry is not just an economic issue, but it's also, in my view, a national security issue. H-2A workers play a vital, huge role in U.S. agriculture, especially in the fruit and vegetable sectors. And again, the agriculture industry and our farmers, they deserve and they need a reliable workforce. So it's critical that we continue to grow and produce our food here in the United States. Imagine the risk that would put our country, our people in, if we had to depend on other countries for the food that we need to just exist and to just live. So as I mentioned before, it's not only an economic issue, it's a national security issue. But fixing immigration, which can be done, needs to be done as a bipartisan effort in a bipartisan way. I believe that it's the only way to get it done, and it's the only way that it will be a lasting fix to the broken system. The hard work is to get a bipartisan bill that can actually become law and have the support of the American people. That's the hard work, but it is possible if we're willing to do that. Last Congress, my colleagues and I introduced the Bipartisan Farm Workforce Modernization Act. Look, it's not a perfect bill, but it was an important step, and it shows that there's bipartisan willingness by a number of us to work for real and to get real bills done. We can and we must find solutions, and we can do so if we're willing to accept not getting every single thing that we want, but if we're willing to fight for the things that our country and our people truly need. I remain absolutely committed to working with people of goodwill, of good faith from both parties to finally fix an immigration system that is totally broken from A to Z. It's going to require more than partisanship and good press. It will require rolling up our sleeves and grinding out a bipartisan legislative proposal that the vast majority of the American people want and will support. We can do it if we're willing to work in a bipartisan way. And I, for one, am willing to work with anyone and everyone who is willing to try to grind out a lasting bill that'll help our country, that'll help those who are living in the shadows, who are strengthening our economy, will adhere to the rule of law, and yes, will secure the national security interests of this, the greatest country that God has allowed men and women to ever create on this planet. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Congressman Diaz Balart. And now I am going to introduce Mr. Mario Cartaya with Cartaya and Associates. He is one of our Impact Board members, and we're very, very happy to have him join us today. Go ahead, Mario.
Thank you, Kathy, so much. And good morning from beautiful Fort Lauderdale. My name is Mario Cartaya. I am a Cuban immigrant and the founder and president of Cartaya and Associate Architects PA, the largest architectural firm in Broward County, turning 42 years old this year. I am also a proud member of the board of Impact. It is my pleasure this morning to introduce Florida's Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Nikki Fried. Commissioner Fried is the highest ranking Democrat and first woman to oversee the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, which supports and promotes Florida agriculture, protects the environment, safeguards consumers, and ensures the safety of the food that we all eat. Fried has been a strong defender of Florida's $137 billion agriculture industry and has devoted her life to working with both parties. She's a true bipartisan effort commissioner. Commissioner Fried, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Mario, for that warm introduction. And I want to also thank Mike Fernandez for also your warm friendship and as well an invitation here. It is an honor to join the Florida Thriving Summit alongside such distinguished Florida leaders. Thank you to Impact Fund and the American Business Immigration Coalition as well. Proud to serve as Florida's 12th Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. As was just stated, agriculture in Florida is the second largest industry with $137 billion economic powerhouse, supporting 2 million jobs and $4 billion worth of exports. What Florida grows, especially here in South Florida, feeds 150 million Americans, our families and neighbors, and worldwide. None of that would happen without the dedication of men and women in agriculture, many of whom are immigrants. Immigrants are part of the fabric of our society, part of the tapestry that is here in the state of Florida. It is crucial to our economy. 1 in 5 Floridians come from somewhere else, and 1 in 4 workers in Florida are immigrants, and they contribute $100 billion to our economy. We need to celebrate immigrants. That means common sense, bipartisan solutions that help immigrants live, work, and achieve the American dream right here in the state of Florida. We need functional immigration system, one that's clear, works for H-2A and H-2B visa workers, brings undocumented workers out of the shadows. Over 40% of immigrants in Florida work in agriculture. Hundreds of thousands, migrants and residents, documented and undocumented. And in COVID, farm workers are some of the most vulnerable. Studies show that 39% have a higher risk of deaths of farm workers and 59% for Hispanic farm workers. It's why I work to protect farm workers no matter who they are, where they come from, what papers they have. Part of our communities and essential to have them as safe, secure, and part of the domestic food supply chain. We have worked with our local governments to bring COVID-19 testing to agricultural counties. Last fall, we launched a farm worker COVID-19 prevention campaign. And last week, we launched a farm worker COVID vaccine campaign with Farm Worker Association of Florida, and many others. Here's what I believe. What we need are common sense immigration solutions. What we don't need are detention centers holding immigrant children in Homestead or anywhere else that separates families. Think everyone agrees we need broad immigration reform. If agriculture is a place where we can come together to accomplish this, let's start there. It is clear to me that agriculture needs a voice at the table on immigration reform, because I believe the best solutions come from building consensus. I view our role as bringing all stakeholders to the table. So I look forward to working with all of you towards bipartisan solutions. And again, thank you. And together we will help keep Florida growing.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Freed, for joining us this morning. And now I would like to introduce Mario Murgado, CEO of Murgado Auto Motors, also Impact Board member. Mario, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity. As an immigrant to this great country, it's an honor to be here and also be part of this Impact Board to be able to serve. This country was formed on immigrants, and to see the challenge that the immigrants are facing. We all understand the reform needs to be done, and it's a fight that we're all fighting right now. It's a fight that's very difficult because of politicization and the polarization that exists today in government, but it's one that I think we have to come together. It's for the good of our country, it's for the betterment of our country, and it's for the good of the community and society. As humanitarians, I think it's an important part that from all sides, we're able to do it. And I like, just like the Commissioner just said, if we can do it right here with agriculture to be the first step, let that be the first step to be able to do it. Today, I'd like to introduce a dear friend to all of us, one that we've all known and been played a big part in our state for many years, and that is Senator Mel Martinez. Senator Mel Martinez from 1962 is one of our other Nuestro Orgullo, just like Tony and others who came here through the Pedro Pan in 1962. In 73, he received his law degree. Later on, became the mayor of Orange County, then appointed by President George W. Bush in 2001 as Secretary of HUD, and then senator, the first Cuban-born elected senator in 2005 to 2009, and a dear friend and someone that I've always respected highly, and couldn't be more pleased to introduce him. And thank you for being here with all of us today on such an important event.
Mario, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you, even if virtually, and delighted with your always encouraging words of patriotism and love of country, which is so vital to everything we're doing about this issue. I'm delighted to follow on the words of Mike Fernandez and the Archbishop Wenski, who both have battled so hard for so many years. Let me speak to you a moment about the realities of the politics of this. I, like so many others who've spoken this morning, also an immigrant to America. I also have gratitude in my heart for all that this country has done for me and for so many others like me, and the opportunities that I've had. I want to see these opportunities for others, because in doing so, we only create a better country. We make America better. Immigrants to this country have been at the root and part of the heartbeat of what this country has always been. And so it is time now that the politics be put aside and that we move forward to create an environment where immigration reform can take place finally once and for all. The fact is, it has to be a bipartisan solution. It cannot be all one way or all the other way. There'll be many things that each of us might consider to be vital to a good and positive immigration solution that may just not be politically possible. It may be that this has to be done in gradual steps. I speak to you about this as someone who wears the scars of 2006, 2007. Some of you were probably still in high school when this was going on, but I've been through the battles in Congress. It isn't easy. The politics of this are very difficult, but with the group that I've seen here today, I'm immensely encouraged. There has to be a moment, there has to be a time when it is the right time. And this feels to me like the right time. So let's go forward from here with the encouragement we've all received, with the lofty words we've heard, but at the same time, to roll up our sleeves and do the practical work of getting this done. Tallahassee and Washington has got to listen. The time is now. It is good for our country. It is good for Florida. And it is also good for the people that are impacted by this. We want to see others have the same opportunity to live a life in freedom and opportunity that we have had. Let's make it happen. The time is now. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to continuing to hear from the other speakers today.
Kathy, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Senator, for always being a champion on these issues. It really is an honor to have you with us today. Now I would like to invite Monica Lázaro is going to be joining us to tell her story today. I've met Monica years ago, and she's a remarkable young woman, and truly an example of what is possible when someone is given the opportunity to be able to realize their full potential. Monica, it is such an honor to have you today. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a great honor to be with you here this morning. And I really wouldn't feel complete if I didn't share that I'm here because my parents made a huge sacrifice 19 years ago. My parents sold everything they owned and left Honduras, looking for a new home free of violence and filled with good opportunities. Although I'm a DACA recipient myself, I feel responsible for advocating for TPS holders and undocumented communities. I grew up undocumented as a kid in Little Havana, which most of you know is the closest you can get to Cuba and Central America in the US. Growing up, I was terrorized by the idea of deportation. DACA provided a temporary sense of relief that allowed me to move forward with a more normal life. And because of these lived experiences, I believe in permanent solutions for undocumented immigrants. As an undocumented immigrant, my family and I faced a health crisis. At the age of 16, I was forced to navigate our highly complex healthcare system. By the time DACA was passed, I was able to begin a professional life. I began working as a researcher and in institutions across Florida. I noticed many of the individuals that were interested in participating in research had no insurance, and a clinical research study was the closest they could get to a free annual exam and a blood draw with a clinician. Both my personal and professional experiences have fueled my passion to find solutions to repair our broken healthcare system and make it more equitable. I am a product of the Miami-Dade County Public School System, attending Citrus Grove Elementary, Ponce de Leon Middle, Coral Gables Senior High, and Miami-Dade College. Yes, Dr. Padron, I am MDC proud. Last December, during a pandemic, I had the privilege of finishing my master's in health policy at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Now, I'm a month into my new job working at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, where every day I wake up happy and look forward to making a difference in the life of our patients. I aspire to become the next Latina Secretary of Health and Human Services and to address healthcare disparities in a nation that I was told as a child is filled with opportunities. Immigration issues are complex, but poll after poll shows that there are at least a few areas where a majority of Americans voters agree: Dreamers, TPS, farm workers, and essential workers. For the sake of our food supply, health in our healthcare system, and overall quality of life, we must bring our immigration system into the 21st century. We are hopeful that leaders like Senator Rubio and Senator Scott will step up and step forward to join us, and the overwhelming majority of Americans to support common sense bipartisan immigration reform. As a result and privilege of my education, I'm able to have a voice on this platform today. Many immigrants also have a voice, and they should not be forgotten. And like me, we are all working in our valuable way to make America grow and prosper. Now, I will introduce our next speaker, John Ellis Bush, otherwise known as Jeb. He was the 43rd governor of Florida, a political analyst, author, and former presidential candidate. Jeb Bush is a longtime ally for immigration reform and is well known for being a compassionate conservative. During his tenure as a governor, Jeb supported access to driver licenses to undocumented immigrants. In 2013, Jeb called for the passing of immigration reform that was humane and would increase economic prosperity. Jeb Bush recognizes that immigrants are the foundation of our country. He acknowledges that the need for immigration reform is a catalyst for sustainable economic growth. Please join me in welcome Florida's 43rd Governor, Jeb Bush.
Thank you, Monica. It is such a joy to be with you. Mike, thank you for your advocacy through Impact to create an environment where we do get to meaningful reform so that the catalyst for sustained economic growth, for innovation, for creativity is sustained in this great country. We all love the United States of America. Many of us are disheartened by the hyper-partisanship that exists right now. I mean, heck, in Washington, even when people agree, they seem to find ways to be disagreeable and find ways to rather than build on agreement, build on consensus, to try to actually do the exact opposite. So what I'd like to talk about here today, first of all, Monica, congratulations on your great career in education. Coral Gables High is near and dear to my heart. I live very close to here, and congratulations for your graduation. Congratulations for your getting a degree, and now, gosh, at Harvard, all those undereducated people are going to be blessed because you're up there equipped with an incredible Florida education. I know you're going to make a huge difference, and maybe not too distant future, I'll be able to see you being sworn as HHS Secretary. Along the way, it's pretty clear that one of the things that would be useful is for us to resolve something where there's a huge bipartisan consensus. The DACA recipients, a majority of Republicans, a great majority of Democrats, a majority of independents believe that if you came here many years ago and you are American in every way and you're making a contribution to our great country, that you ought to be able to get citizenship and do that in a very rapid way. And so I hope that we can achieve that in Washington, D.C. But I would like to talk about just a little bit about how Florida can lead the way, as it always has in a lot of ways as it relates to policy. This is a place where there isn't the same degree of rancor that you might see in other parts of the country. We have a bipartisan tradition of supporting immigration initiatives to give people a chance to live a life of dignity and a life of purpose. And in my mind, convincing our elected officials, both federal and state, that this should be a high priority. This is a Florida value, to give people a chance to rise up, to be able to live a dream of purpose and meaning is so important for our state. I'm reading a book right now about the 1920s in Florida and how people came with incredible dreams to be able to build our state. It wasn't the most elegant process in the world. There were a lot of bumps along the way. But the fact that people had these big dreams and invested in them is the hallmark of our state. Guys like Mike Fernandez have created huge opportunities for so many other people because they had big dreams and they had the chance to pursue them. We now have a generation of Floridians that could do the exact same thing. And I don't think we have the luxury anymore of restraining people's chance to reach their God-given potential. So my hope is, with the governor, with the legislature, elected cabinet officials, as well as our states, our US senators and Congress people, that we begin to build a consensus of what meaningful immigration, bipartisan immigration reform should look like, and in a positive way, advocate for, on behalf of people that could help our state create high sustained economic growth where everyone benefits, and certainly our country. It starts with DACA, where there is really broad bipartisan support. All of us know those that have come to our country undocumented and have gone to our schools, have gone to our colleges, continue to make a difference in work. And my guess is that this is something that we can embrace and that we ought to be passionately advocating in our state capital, wherever appropriate, and most particularly in Washington, D.C. So thank you all, Impact, for what you've done to put a business perspective on immigration reform. There's so much that needs to be done. Eventually, the The ability to compromise and to find consensus is going to happen again. And my guess is that Florida will lead the way. Thank you for allowing me to participate. And Monica, congratulations again as you take on these exciting new challenges at the Farber Center.
Thank you so much, Governor Bush, for joining us today. It is truly an inspiring message. And now it is my honor to introduce our short panel on the Bipartisan Dream Act. We will be moderated today by none other than Gabby Pacheco of Dream US. Gabby, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, Kathy. So dreamers, only whom some have DACA, are Americans in all but paperwork and are long overdue for immediate path to citizenship. Right now, there are more than 640,000 DACA recipients, including 24,000 dreamers who live in Florida, all who have been in the front lines of the pandemic and deserve to be granted a path to citizenship. Today, we will discuss why a legislative solution to dreamers is key in building confidence towards broader immigration reform. And today we will hear from Speaker Weatherford, who was not only instrumental, but key in the passage of the out-of-state tuition waiver that allowed Florida immigrant students to pay in-state tuition rates. A champion of education, and these students, we're so happy to have you with us. As well, we will have Dr. Padron, one of the most nationally and internationally recognized higher education leaders. He is credited with engineering a culture of success that has produced impressive results in students' access, retention, graduation, and overall achievement. I have the privilege of calling him my friend and mentor, and I would like to start by asking Dr. Padron my first question. Dr. Padron, roughly 68,000 undocumented students graduate from U.S. high school every year. How has the Dreamer population at Miami-Dade College affected not only your student community, but Florida as a whole?
Well, Gabby, it's wonderful to see you and to have your question, because you, as well as Monica, who we just heard from, are two students, former students at Miami-Dade College, have made us very, very proud. You know that dreamers are very dear to my heart. During my 24 years as president of Miami-Dade College, on daily basis, I encounter numerous dreamers. And anyone who meets a dreamer immediately realizes that a dreamer is as American as anyone. It's an American in every respect, except for the paperwork. And, you know, most of us who have met dreamers know that most of them do not even know the country that they came from. They were brought here by their parents who were fleeing persecution in search of freedom, in search of opportunity. And these are students who have gone to our schools, who have on daily basis pledged allegiance to the American flag. These are students who have a strong belief in the American dream. And they are, in my personal experience, among the best students that you can find anywhere. They have excelled in every field, in academics, in the arts, sports, you name it. They are the first to volunteer for community service. They display on daily basis grit and determination. And they have the same aspirations as any other youngster in our community. I think it's very important that we do something to be able to support and allow these people to reach their full potential. The sad reality is that dreamers have lived in the shadows for too long. They have lived in fear. It's time, in my opinion, for a common sense solution to their plight. We need to move forward. America needs them, and Florida needs them. Let's, for once and for all, give them a path to citizenship. As I said, they have a lot to offer. This is an incredible asset that can only make America stronger. And at this time, we need everyone's talent. The 21st century is about innovation. And we need people who are able to innovate. And the dreamers will be at the front line of innovation if we allow them to.
Thank you so much, Dr. Padron. And that resonates with me so much. If we were in one room, the two things that and we didn't have COVID, the two things I would do was give a big, strong handshake and a big hug to Speaker Weatherford for everything that he did to get the out-of-state tuition waiver passed. I started working on that issue in 2003, and it took about 10 years for that to happen. And my question to you is, what did you learn about reaching across the aisle to get that legislation passed here in the state of Florida? And how can we use those lessons to help pass the Federal DREAM Act?
Well, thank you so much, Gabby. It's an honor to be here. And thank you for all your efforts in helping us get that done many years ago. This is a very complex issue. Immigration reform is complex, but there are some parts of it that are not complex, meaning that children in any society should never be punished for the decisions of their parents. And, years ago, there was a lady in my community who is still my friend to this day named Margarita Romo, who works with the migrant community in serving them. And Margarita would come see me every single year and talk to me about this issue. And she would say, Will, I know you can't solve the challenges of the dysfunction in Washington, D.C. and the lack of action, but you have control over this issue. And if you fight for it, I think people will follow you. And to be very candid, for 6 years, I cowered and did nothing. And something happened in the last conversation we had about this and when I became speaker, where I felt convicted. I felt called by God, to be very frank, to do something, to use my platform to right an injustice that was right around us, that all eyes could see. And to be honest, the only way I think immigration reform takes place on a national level will be the same way that it happened here in Florida, which is people overcoming their fears. One of the most powerful things and emotions a person can feel is fear. It can be crippling, it can be debilitating. And people are concerned, particularly on the right, about their political future. They're fearful. And when people are fearful, they don't want to step out and show courage. And so what we have to do is, not just convince people that we're right, we have to help them overcome their fear. And the good news is that there are two human emotions that are more powerful than fear, and that's hope and love. And so you have to remind people that these are humans, these are children, these are folks that have done nothing wrong, that are looking for an opportunity in life in this country, just like their children are. And so we have to inspire them to hope for these children. We have to inspire them to love these people. And in doing so, that helps them overcome their fear. It was not hard for me to convince my friends on the other side of the aisle to do the right thing when it came to in-state tuition. The challenge was within the Republican Party, and facing your own party and convincing them to challenge their own fears is the hardest part of this process, but it can be done. And like Governor Bush said earlier, we have led on this in Florida, and we did it with people like Jeb and yourself and Mike Fernandez and many others who stepped up and helped us get it across the goal line. So I have hope, and I have a belief that this can be accomplished if everybody rallies together.
Thank you so much, Speaker. And I also have so much hope and belief in that. Now, I would like to do a call to action, because we are very, very long overdue for a permanent solution for the 1.7 million young people who contribute to our vibrant student bodies, dreamers who are an integral part of our communities, both on and off campus. And in 2018, 454,000 students in higher education were undocumented, 216,000 of which had or were eligible for deferred action for childhood arrivals. There are currently over 640,000 active DACA recipients and approximately 1.3 million more eligible to apply. Critically, there are 202,000 DACA recipients that are essential workers on the front lines of the response of COVID-19, keeping our country clean, safe, healthy, and fed through the global pandemic. So though an essential and celebrated protection for immigrant youth, we have DACA, we must evolve that program from a temporary and narrow protection to a broad and more stable path to citizenship for dreamers. And dreamers with and without DACA cannot wait any longer for relief, nor should their futures remain politicized beyond their control. Polling shows that support for dreamers gaining legal status has only increased over the years. And a recent poll from February 2021 found that 83% of Americans and 66% of Republicans favored allowing undocumented immigrants who were brought to the US as children to remain in the United States and eventually apply for citizenship. So we need to call on our senators and to co-sponsor the DREAM Act and also to once that bill comes to the floor to vote yes, because this is a long overdue bill that needs to become a law. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gabby. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our next panel, Agriculture and Economic Prosperity, Bipartisan Farm Workforce Modernization. And today we will be moderated by Barbara Mainster. Barbara Mainster has decades of working on issues related to farm workers and farm worker families, has a very good understanding of what the needs are of our growers in Florida and how we can come together. Barbara Mainster was the leader at RCMA for many years, and we are delighted to have her join us today.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and welcome panel. I am really excited about doing this. It's funny when Kathy talks about many, many years, everybody can see the gray hair, and I guess that gives you a certain amount of clout. We thought we were going to get this done in 2009. That makes me realize when you have to start subtracting, we're there, we're going to get there, we're going to make it happen. And I am delighted that you're going to hear from people on this panel. And then we'll close with a call to action. So I'm going to start, I'm going to introduce each person as they come up. So Cesar Gonzalez is one of my very favorite people in the world. He is the one that when we went to Capitol Hill, always got us into the office. He put up with parents and children that we brought into the office, and it's probably why he stayed so close to us. Cesar has been working on writing immigration reform bills for a really long time. See, he shaves his head so you won't see that he's getting older too.
No, I've lost the hair. I didn't get the gray, I lost the hair.
Makes good sense. Cesar, you've got an amazing history working on immigration legislation. So tell us about the Bipartisan Farm Worker Modernization Act and whether you see that it possibly could get introduced before March 12th and what your overall prognosis is.
Okay. Well, Barbara, thanks first of all for putting this together. I really appreciate it. And we've had a great long friendship. As Barbara mentioned, I've been working on immigration reform for many, many years here on Capitol Hill for both of the Diaz Balart brothers, first Lincoln and now Mario. This bill that we passed last year was the first one that has actually come. We've had the process of trying to put together bipartisan immigration bills for years and years and years, and I've been stuck in those back rooms trying to negotiate those. Unfortunately, they never made it out of that back room. This time, for the first time, the agricultural bill did finally make it out, and we were able to get it to the floor and pass with a good bipartisan majority on both sides. That was a great first step on there. Unfortunately, it came at a time when the Senate was preoccupied with a number of different issues, including impeachment, and wasn't able to get any time there. The good thing about this new Congress now is that there is a rule that the Democrats have put together that allows for a bill that had been passed previously to come to the floor directly without having to go through committee. It has to be done before April. So there is a small window of opportunity for us to get this bill passed. It'll be up to the Democrats to see if they want to do that. I think most of the Republican members who supported this bill and helped write it and voted for it are all in support again. And I think we'll even get a larger number of Republicans this time if it does come as it was introduced in 2019. I've got my fingers crossed, so we're hoping to see what happens. The Democrats are looking at their bigger comprehensive immigration bill. They're whipping that, and they're trying to figure out if they're going to do it as a big whole package and maybe we get lumped into that, or if they're going to do what's called the piecemeal approach, where they take small bits of is it Dreamers, is it border, is it TPS, and take those up separately, including our bill. So that determination needs to be made, and we're ready on our side of the aisle to help and try to get this bill passed and into the Senate, where I'm hoping that they'll have a little bit more time to debate it and get it passed, and we'll hopefully get something to the president's desk, because both our farm workers and our farmers both need relief, and if we don't take care of this, My boss always likes to talk about agriculture as a national security issue. If you think importing our oil is bad, try importing our food. We cannot have that. We need to have a system where we are able to produce our own food. We're able to get a workforce that's able to come in, that the farmers are able to harvest their crops, and then we deal with the issue of the undocumented that we have right now. That's all taken care of in this bill. We did it on a bipartisan, fashion. Not everyone was happy. There was things I didn't like in there, but that's part of the negotiation process. And I'm hopeful that we'll take this bill as is, because if you start to make changes, that's where we're going to lose our coalition. So we've got this small opportunity now, and I got my fingers crossed for something in March.
Thank you so much. That's your prognosis. Your fingers are crossed, and I'll count on that. Thank you, Cesar. Our next speaker is a gentleman that I don't think I've had the pleasure to meet, but since I came to Homestead in 1972, I saw the great big Damare tomato signs, and I know he is a giant, not only in the agricultural industry, but more recently, Paul, you have become a wonderful spokesperson for immigration reform, and I couldn't be more proud to ask you to talk to us about your viewpoint. I want to first recognize that you and I are both proud children of immigrants. I was touched by hearing the Cuban Americans speak this morning. Your family, I believe, came from Italy, mine from Germany. It came when there was a way to get in here legally. It was our luck. We lucked out. So tell us some more about your critical role, the critical role that immigrants have played in your business, and why common sense legislation like the Farm Worker Modernization Act has to become law.
Well, Barbara, again, thank you very much for asking me to speak about this. The United States is all immigrants except for the American Indian. Every single person here is an immigrant through some person that came from a foreign country. So why we're still talking about immigration is the craziest thing in the world, since we make up this whole country and have made it very successful of the people that have come here. And they only came here because they couldn't make it in their own country, especially in the 1800s and early 1900s. Those people didn't leave their countries because they want to leave Italy and France and Germany. And there was no jobs. They couldn't make a living. They had to support their families. And this is what you've got going on now, except it's moved from Europe to Mexico, Central America, South America, basically Haiti, and the Asian continent, where there's a lot of poverty. And those people have come here to make a living for their families. What would you do if you couldn't support them? We have made a living in this country off the backs of immigration, especially in agriculture. Agriculture is a very unusual way of working. We can't find, and I've been in the business, our family is 93-year-old family business. I, to this day, have never seen what I call Americans working in the fields picking crops. They just won't do it. And it's stoop labor. It's very tough. It's bent over in the sun all day long. And it's not something that's easy. And we're having a terrible problem right now. We're probably short 35 to 40% labor in the United States right now in agriculture. And not just in the fields, but in the packing houses. And a lot of the packing houses, because of what the government has done with all this money they're throwing around, people are getting really more money to stay out of work than they are to work, with unemployment from both sides. I mean, this is a really tough situation for the agricultural community in the United States. We farm all over the country. We're in California, we're in Carolina, we're in Florida. And I'm telling you, every place, and it's been getting worse each year. And unless we have immigrants coming into this country to pick these crops, you can forget your food. And if you think you've had a problem with oil, lose your food production in this country and go begging to other countries to give you food, you'll see a real serious problem. We cannot afford to lose our farmers. Farming is not something that young people are just going to jump into. It's very expensive. The equipment, the tractors, the land, and the time that goes into it is very, very tough. You don't have a lot of people jumping into farming. So we don't want to lose the ones that are there. We hope their sons will go into it and their relatives. But you're not just going to say, well, I think I'll start a farm up. That's not an easy thing to do. And immigration, without the people that we've had, I couldn't exist. The immigrants have been very, very good to me. We need to do something. There's no doubt. We're not going to send back this 11 or 20 million illegals that are here. That's the craziest thing I ever heard. It'd be a human disaster. They're married, they got kids. What are you going to do? Pick up a parent and send them back? That's the craziest thing. And we can't seem to get together I'd like to see all the immigrants that are working illegally in this country stop working for about 2 weeks. You could shut this country down. They're the people that are doing what I call all the handwork, service work in all of the states. They're the only people who want to do that work anymore. What I call the American people, us Italians, Germans, French, they're not going to work in the farms. They're not going to go fix the beds and clean the houses and do the rooftops and do the dirty jobs in construction. They're not going to do it. These immigrants come in and they will work at those jobs. And without them, we don't have a country. We can't run this country without the immigrants. And we got to find a way to bring them in legally. I'm not for illegal immigration. I am for legal immigration. If I have 1 million people sneaking into this country a year from the South, and they're getting in here that way, they do sneak in, that's why we have so many. Why don't we make it legal? Why don't we just say, we're going to vet these people and tell Mexico, you can have so many, South America, you can have Central America, so many a month, let them in here. They're getting in anyways, except they're coming in illegally. I want to bring them in legally. I want them to be vetted. I want them to be quarantined, make sure they're not bringing any communicable disease, make sure they're not criminals through a system that's legitimate. Instead, we got the same people, but they're just sneaking in. That's crazy.
Thank you.
That's what I feel.
Thank you, Paul. I love listening to you because you tell it like it is, and we need more of that. So thank you. And I'm charged with the time, so I'm going to go on to Commissioner Freed. You need no introduction. You spoke earlier. I just want to tell you how proud I am for you as the first woman commissioner, I believe, in Ag. And I am very excited that you get the big picture. So tell us why you're supporting the Farm Worker Modernization Act and in terms of what it means to the economic system in Florida.
Absolutely. And thank you, Barb, for everything that you have done and for moderating and just really all of your efforts to help some of Florida's most vulnerable children and their families. Yes, I'm the first female commissioner of agriculture. And as I have been on a call this week with my fellow commissioners from across the country, I've also realized that I'm the first probably in the Southeast as well. So really, it is great to join this panel today, because the reality is this. The Florida's economic prosperity is tied directly to agricultural prosperity. We are not only the sunshine state, we are a seasonal crop state, growing over 300 commodities, exporting to over 164 countries. And as I said earlier, labor of producing those commodities simply doesn't happen without talented, hard-working immigrant workforce. Farm workers stepped up in the pandemic to keep the food supply secure at risk of their own well-being. If they get sick, half of farm workers don't have health coverage, and 3/4 of undocumented farm workers don't. So we need solutions on immigration and healthcare. As Barbara knows well, farm workers work in some of the toughest conditions, and they are more vulnerable to respiratory illnesses than other parts of our population. Health concern isn't just COVID. Last year, we launched our Farm Worker Heat Illness Campaign because ag farmers face 20 times higher risk of heat-related death. Health also means nutrition, and that's why we help to provide 300 million meals every single year to 3 million Florida's kids, and many of them are dreamers, children of immigrants and TPS holders. Our economy, our culture, our society needs to celebrate immigrants. Our public needs to know that they are here and that they are with our clear and functioning immigration system needs to be comprehensive, and we need comprehensive reform. Everyone agrees that something needs to get done. So I applaud President Biden for going bold, and I appreciate his plan on his pathway to citizenship for frontline workers, including those inside of agriculture. And I think we also can all agree the H-2A program is complex and needs major reform. While agriculture is one area we all can agree on, we should do it and shouldn't keep us from getting a comprehensive reform done. Last time I spoke with the American Business Immigration Coalition in December, We talked about Farm Workforce Modernization Act. Still think it's great and appreciate all who have been working to make this to happen, including your team, Cesar, and as well as the Florida delegation members who are supporting it. We all are looking forward to having a congressional plan and to make sure that Congress goes big, finds agreement, works together, and just gets it done. And as I have said before, I want to bring everybody together, find consensus, stop kicking the can down the road, bring immigration system into the 21st century. After years of partisan divide and rhetoric, let this be the chance for real bipartisan solution. Let's work with President Biden to get it done, and I look forward to working with all of you to make this happen.
Thank you, Commissioner Freed. I just want to say a couple of things have come to me as I get to close with a call to action. Paul, the immigrants have always done the scut work in this country. That's just how it works. I know my parents worked cleaning basements in New York City. My dad cleaned windows in some apartment building. They worked on farms. The next generation doesn't. The next generation works in things like RCMA and providing services to needy families. That's how it is in this country. You're right. That's what we're built on. I also want to say that it's clear to me Will Weatherford really touched the nerve and touched the heart. How do you conquer the fear? And I think of why Cesar Gonzalez has always found a way to let us into his office when we appeared in Washington, D.C. And it's because we brought the families or the stories of the kids with us. He met those farm workers. He got to ask questions about what they traveled and how did this work? How do you pack up your families and move to Ohio? And what does that mean to your kids? And he got to hear families talk about how important it was for them to have childcare so they could work because they wanted a better life for their families. We have to find a way to conquer the fear with hope and love. And I think people are touched when they see the young lady from DACA who spoke. We've got to find ways to make these people real to them. Yes, they care about the economy, but they also have to realize that these are human beings just like their grandparents and parents maybe before them or great grandparents. They all just want a shot and they're willing to work for it. So I hope groups like RCMA will continue to take people to meet. It's hard when you're facing flesh and blood to stay hard and be political. But this is not about politics. This is about doing what's right. And this country has a history. We haven't done well recently with our partisanship, but with guys like Cesar Gonzalez and Mario Diaz Balart working for us on that side of the aisle, and hopefully we can get some of the others on the other side of the aisle to recognize you may not get the whole loaf, but by God, a half a loaf is better than nothing. We need to get started and get the ball rolling. So thank you all panelists so much. Thank you for putting this together, Kathy and Rebecca and Mike Fernandez. You guys have been a real inspiration.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for being with us today. And thank you to the panelists. Next, we have our following panel, which is Florida Economic Engine, TPS, Immigrant Workers, Critical Roles. This short panel will be moderated by Maria Rodriguez, the Executive Director of the Florida Immigrant Coalition. Maria has been working on issues related to immigrants and immigrant families for many years, bringing together dozens of organizations that serve immigrant families around the state of Florida. It is an honor to introduce Maria Rodriguez.
Good morning. What a formidable show of deep and broad support for immigration reform in whatever shape that takes. And congratulations to IMPAC and ABIC for this phenomenal conversation. As Kathy said, my name is Maria. I actually serve 50 organizations that make up the Florida Immigrant Coalition, representing diverse sectors. We come together for the fair treatment of all people, including immigrants, so that people can live, labor, and love without fear. I'm encouraged, as Barbara said, to hear so many of the speakers state what we know is true, that there is that breadth and depth and urgency of support for bringing people out of the shadows, and the Sunshine State is ready for it. I hope our senators and our congressional delegation can hear us loud, can hear us often, that there is a clamor, and there's a clamor because we have a crisis that we can address, that we've gotten close to address, and 11 million Americans, despite not having their immigration authorization, are key to our communities, and that's what this conversation today is about. 411,000 of those have temporary protected status. Sadly, they've been in this limbo for an average of 17 years, living as second-class citizens, with lots of uncertainty and fear and many implications around that. Today, we have a chance to hear from three phenomenal women, Dr. Deborah Garcia, Chief Medical Officer at Borinquen Medical Center, a federally qualified health center that is the lifeline of so many people here in South Florida. Wilna Destin, Disney worker, TPS recipient, human and labor rights organizer, and a beloved board member, inspiration to us all. And Carol Dover, the CEO and president of the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. We don't have a lot of time, but I'll ask Dr. Garcia to speak a little bit about what are the implications of being in this TPS limbo in the context of a pandemic, and how do you see reform improving the health of your patients and the community?
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be able to speak to the panel today. As an immigrant myself, Borinquen Healthcare Center has been serving the community for about 49 years, and I myself was a patient here when I came as an immigrant. Many of our staff included are TPS workers. Many of our patients are TPS recipients. And we see that reflect the challenge that they face with the mental health crisis. They suffer from anxiety. They suffer from a number of chronic diseases. And their fear, that's brought on by fear, that the other gentleman mentioned. So the fear of that any moment they can be deported and that their lives can be, and that their roots can be they can be uprooted. They have children here. They contribute to the community. Many of them are home health aides that take care of our elderly populations, our patients with disabilities, and especially in this pandemic, many of them are frontline workers. And we can't forget those that are behind the scenes, without whom our systems of care would fall apart. So it's very important to keep those individuals in mind.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garcia, for the work that you do and understanding the interdependence of our health, not just our public health, our mental health, but obviously we will hear from Carol Dover about our interdependence of our economic well-being as well. Wilna, so many TPS holders are part of key industries. You've been here for so many years. You're a homeowner. What would it mean for you to get authorization? What is the impact for you to live in limbo, and how do you see that in your community? You're on mute, but thankfully you're not frozen. That's easier to solve.
Yes, I think I got it. Okay, you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I'm gonna introduce myself since you asked me a question. Yeah, my name is Wilna Destin. I've been in this hospitality industry for over 14 years. Both my husband and I, we, TPS holder, I both work at as an organizer and also as a housekeeper at Disney. There's thousands of workers in Florida with TPS, and over 500 at Disney alone. We have TPS, we are TPS holder. And the TPS holders in Orlando, we work and keep the hospitality industry running. You know, we keep it during the pandemic. We are the one who's in the front line and working and keep this industry. Okay, I moved from Haiti to Orlando 21 years ago. I moved, and my husband and I, we have two beautiful U.S. citizen children. You know, they here and always worry about, you know, our immigration status. My daughter, she's gonna turn 18 soon, and she going to university. And my son gonna turn 14 and walking into high school. And my kids, they worry all the time and calling me, asking me, and they worry about if we're gonna get deported, you know, which is not fair. The kids, they're supposed to be worried about their grades, right? You know, this is all they have to do. Worry about your grades, your stuff, but they have to worry about me. And my daughter, she was in high school and calling me, Mommy, I heard somebody say there is an immigration bus in Oak Ridge where we live, where you are, go inside the house. My kids, my daughter, she was, you know, 16 in high school. What a pain. It's so difficult for us as like, you know, TPS holders, you know, for our kids, the stress in our kids is not fair. It's not fair for the kids even, you know. This is why it's very, you know, very difficult. Every 6 months or 18 months, we have to renew. This put us on so much stress. My children, you know, I was always think, because I'm here paying taxes and I bought my house and I work very hard. You know, this is why we asked the Congress, you know, we urge them to act for a Part 2 citizen, you know, because it's gonna be good for the society. It's gonna be good for everybody, you know, for our health, you know, high blood pressure, stress, you know. I don't know how many times I go to the hospital. I know it's like, you know, the blood pressure is the stress on me because I have to choose. If immigration, I get deported, I have to choose my kids between immigration, go or what I have to do. You know, this is a question every day. I wake up and get the same question in my mind when I'm going out and get the same question, you know, if immigration catch me, they deport me, what's gonna happen to my kids, you know? It's an urgency, you know, for us being here for 21 years and I do enough, you know, I work hard enough and I do whatever they ask me to do. I try driving carefully, not to even have a ticket, you know, driving for 20 years, you know, so much you have to do and to offer. But I know this country built based off immigrants 1,000 years ago. You know, people have to go back and think about their grandparents, their grandma, their mom. You know, if you're in a position now, you cannot forget. As a matter of fact, I think we have to celebrate an immigration day. We have to have it in calendars because this country built based off immigrants 1,000 years ago. Whoever you are, you know, this country, we work, we clean, we do everything. We in the back house. The front house look good, but the back house, we are the one in the back house, you know, who clean the front house. Remember that we provide, we do everything. It's very necessary, you know, for us, you know, for the Congress, everybody to think about us.
Absolutely. Thank you on that. Undoubtedly, the immigrant workforce is such an important backbone of so many industries. We heard about agriculture, we know about tech, we know about healthcare. And thank you to Ms. Carol Dover, the CEO of the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association. We'd love to hear from you about what immigration reform and bringing people into full status would mean for the industry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mike and Kathy, for putting this together, this very important bipartisan group. You know, I represent the hotel and restaurant industry. I mean, I think most people know that one of the economic engines of Florida is our tourism industry. And Wilna, your plea does not go unheard, I can promise you. We fight every day for this industry to stay afloat. And particularly given what we've been through this last year, the hotel and restaurant industry has really suffered. We do not have enough workers. We have never had enough workers. We're the largest employer of people in the state. We had over 1.5 million employees. prior to the pandemic. But even since, so many people are still not wanting to work, and we struggle. The HB visa is a wonderful program, but it just doesn't work for our industry. We get our employees and we get them trained, and just about the time that we feel very good about their work product and their training ability, they have to go back to their country. And so then we start all over again. It's just a broken system. And so we need to have, in my opinion, and in many of my members' opinion, a very good guest worker program that will allow our immigrants to not feel like they have to hide and not, be completely reliant on the HB visa program. Because let's face it, some of the places where they go back to is very dangerous. They don't want to go back, and they have a skill, and we've spent hours and a lot of money training. And so we're hoping to keep our state thriving, that there will be a really sought out way to come to a bipartisan immigration agreement. It was great to hear our good Governor Jeb Bush talk about, Florida leading the way, and we can, because I talk to my colleagues across the country every week. And if Florida can just really show how this can be done in a bipartisan way, which obviously here today, thanks to many of you, this is what we're starting to do. So all we can do is pray that our elected officials on both sides of the aisle will come together to try to fulfill the dreams of so many of our immigrants that we must have in our state to continue to be an economic engine and to continue to employ people to work in our business. Otherwise, our businesses don't survive. So thank you very much for having me today, and know that the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association will continue to fight for very solid and sound immigration policy that will allow our immigrants to continue to work.
Thank you so much. So many diverse perspectives, but very, very clear that bringing reform in whatever way, by whatever means, that recognizes the dignity and the value of Americans' workforce, taxpayers, consumers, families, is not just politically makes sense, economically makes sense, but morally makes sense. I want to take just one moment to say thank you to Mike Fernandez, because your championship is giving so much hope tonight to so many people, so many of the families. We know 56,000 Floridians have TPS. We heard from Wilna, we heard from Monica. I want to thank problem solvers like Mario Diaz Balart, moral leaders like Bishop Wenski, Rebecca Shee from ABIC, and Kathy Bird from Impact, because I think that this is the time, now is the moment. 500 Nobel laureates signed a letter in 2013 when Senator Rubio worked for immigration reform to say that it makes the economic sense. And we hope that Senator Rubio supports the Van Hollen bill, supports 5.5 million essential workers to give them some stability so that they can serve us. So thank you so much. And with that, I'll pass it over to Kathy.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you for your tireless leadership. I am so honored to introduce our next panel, Recover and Rebuild, Florida's Essential Workers. Our moderator will be Mr. Al Cardenas, Impact and APIC co-chair. A senior partner at Squire, Patton, Boggs, Mr. Cardenas was the chair of the Florida Republican Party and the former chair of the American Conservative Union. Mr. Cardenas is a regular political commentator on Meet the Press. Always a bridge builder and problem solver, Mr. Cardenas will host Senators Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin at FSU's Institute of Politics in March. We will invite everyone on this forum and also circulate this widely so you can attend. Please help me give a very warm welcome to Mr. Al Cardenas. Oh, Al, you're on mute.
Okay, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, all good.
Great. Well, listen, all of us who've been on this summit are very busy and have multiple responsibilities. I consider my work for Impact and ABIC amongst the most important things that I can do to contribute towards the passage of comprehensive immigration reform. And I will confine, obviously, my contribution to the sector about essential workers. But I wanted to add that in the United States, we have a declining birth population. Simply put, our parents are having less children than their parents did. And we have an actuarial crisis in terms of sustaining our most critical entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Those are not sustainable if our workforce is declining in numbers and our recipients are increasing in numbers. And the only way that we can resolve this issue is by having a sensible, comprehensive immigration reform package that invites talented immigrants to work in our areas of essential needs. And in Florida, essential needs are agriculture, construction, hospitality, and many others. And so I want to start out by welcoming our speakers and having them add their points of view regarding essential workers and what our needs may be in the state and how we can help resolve that. It's my pleasure to invite a friend, someone I've known for many years, laboring for the good of Florida, and that's the CEO and president of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, Mark Wilson. Mark, welcome.
Hey, Al, thanks for having me. So glad to be here.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So if I could, I did, the Florida Chamber's been partnering with all of you on this for a long time, as we all like to say, before it was popular, right? And so if it's okay with you, Al, I'd like to share a little bit of why this matters to the business community in Florida. So is it okay to go ahead and do that?
Thank you. Please do.
Okay, great. So first, Al, we have about 250 chambers of commerce in Florida, everywhere from the Keys to Pensacola. And the number one issue in Florida before COVID hit is workforce. Our members throughout Florida have more jobs open than skilled workforce to fill those jobs. And in fact, as we all sit here today on this incredibly important call, we have about 350,000 open jobs in Florida that can't find qualified people to fill them. And we have over 700,000 people looking for those jobs. So we have a skills mismatch. And Al, here's what I'd like to say. If Florida was a country, we would be the 17th largest economy in the world. We're bigger than Saudi Arabia. We're a $1.11 trillion economy. We want to grow to the 10th largest in 10 years. And this is why a smart national immigration policy makes so much sense. It makes America more competitive, and it creates economic opportunity for hundreds of millions of people who want to pursue the American dream. So here's a couple numbers, Al. We have, I mentioned that $1.11 trillion economy. Florida needs, we're going to add about 4 million residents in a decade. And we need to create about 2 million new jobs. And as Carol Dover mentioned on the panel before, jobs are the lifeblood. Jobs are important. And so we need 2 million more jobs over the next decade right here in Florida. And Al, if we took politics out of all of this, this would have been solved a long time ago, because any third grader can figure out we have a math problem, we have a workforce problem. And if we want to continue to be the largest economy in the world, we have to remember we are the most diverse nation on the planet. We're the largest economy on the planet. Florida has the 20th most diverse economy in the United States right now. Everyone, Al, knows that Florida has a lot of seniors. It's something that makes us diverse. It's one thing that makes Florida great. We have more Hispanic and Latino Floridians than we have seniors. And so if you want to look across the country, Florida is already an incredibly diverse place. We need smart federal immigration policy. We all know what that means. And I'm very thankful to Rebecca and to this organization, not only for inviting us to be part of today's conversation, but You know, Al, you and Governor Bush and Speaker Weatherford and others have taught us over the years that so many things in life is about timing. And I think the timing, I think there's a door open right now, and all of us that have been working on this for a long time, you need to remember, you know, Florida can show the rest of the country how to do it, but, you know, maybe if we all unite together right now for all the right reasons, maybe now's the right time, and we certainly hope it is. It's worth fighting for. So thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for those words, Pat. They were important to say, and I appreciate them coming from you. You know, they have a saying in the process, as the politicians discuss this policy, you can go higher, you can go low. I've heard from those who talk about going low. That does not create jobs, does not create prosperity, does not create opportunity in America. So I'm proud of this group, of this summit, because everybody's going high and explaining to our fellow Americans how this is important to our nation and to our state. So thank you, Mark. And it's my pleasure now to introduce you to Eloise Gonzalez. She's the head of CIC, Interior Contractors. And one of the issues we had mentioned earlier is one of our state's greatest strengths is our construction industry. And Eloise, welcome to the panel. It's good to see you again. And we'd love to hear from you. You need to unmute.
Forgive me, I apologize.
That's all right.
Thank you, all, Cardenas. Good morning to all, and thank you, ABIC and the Impact, for allowing me this opportunity to voice my support. As the owner of Commercial Interior Contractors, a 38-year-old woman-owned business construction here in South Florida, I have been privileged to be born to this great country, a country that opened its doors to my immigrant, physically challenged mother when she came from Cuba. It was because of her teachings of hard work and ethics is that I speak before you today. In my industry, which is not sexy like fintech or other fast-growing technology industries, we have a very hard time luring that next generation into our construction industry, mostly because of parents like me, that we want our kids to go and have a fabulous college experience and be successful and have a better life than we've had. It wasn't until my son left the financial services to join my business that it became so evident to me that we needed a succession plan, and a succession plan consisting of attracting, cultivating, and training younger workforces so that we can continue and grow our business in our community. A workforce that happens to be legal immigrants willing to work on their hands and knees, for which I am so grateful, because without them, we would not enjoy our success. And also, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Impact and BIC for their support in assisting us with the PPP loans, that without them, we wouldn't have been able to stay afloat and support our families and our workers' families because of the ports drying up in South Florida. So for that, I am so grateful. And I am very grateful for this opportunity to be here with you today.
Thank you, Eloise, and best wishes moving forward. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Jorge Lima. Jorge, are you appearing on the screen? Jorge is a senior policy advisor. There you are, a senior policy advisor for Americans for Prosperity. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you about this pretty critical issue. I know you all have been quite involved with it for a long time.
I appreciate that, Al. And yes, it feels like a long time, though I must admit, not as long as some of the folks here. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants when I hear some of the inspiring stories of people who've been in this fight for so long. Hopefully we'll get some wins on the board sooner rather than later. You know, I'm calling today out of DC, but I do have proud 305 roots. And so I'm excited to see so many familiar faces down from South Florida. And a big thank you to APAC and ABIC and the Impact Fund for this invitation. It's really an honor for Americans for Prosperity to call all of you our partners. And we're very proud of the work that we're doing together to get things done on the immigration reforms that we're all talking about. Like I mentioned before, the stories that have been shared so far this morning of the immigrant contributions and impact that they're having not just in Florida. I mean, all of these can be translated to across the country, are really inspiring. And particularly the stories from Monica and Gabby, you all inspire me every day because you personify really the strength, the contribution, and the plight that so many dreamers are going through in this country. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. So we've heard a lot from speakers this morning about the need, the timing, the support on immigration reforms. And so I wanted to lean a little bit from our perspective here in Washington and the advocacy work that we're doing to talk about the how this can actually start to become action. And for us, that means really leaning in and helping the champions on the Hill understand that we're not asking them to sacrifice their political careers or even their own beliefs, but rather that there is so much broad support for these types of reforms so that they can see that this is actually good policy and good politics. It's not an or, it is actually both of those things. And so how do we do that? We all know on this call that right now, those who are benefiting from the status quo and oppose any of these reforms are activating fast. They literally want to lean into the fear that we heard about earlier today and use that fear to scare politicians into doing literally nothing, which is what we've seen for the past 3 or more decades. So we change that by making sure that the lawmakers hear from us. We make sure that they know and see the support. That's why events like today and the voices of the panelists today are so important. But to be honest, we all know that these voices need to reach much further than just this event today. Lawmakers need to know that we're going to be there for them at every turn. And as simple as it may seem, it means thanking them when they stick their necks out, right? I'm sure many of us can hear from Caesar or Representative Diaz Balart after this call, and they'll tell you, like many of the other elected officials, that even being part of something like this, a online 2-hour panel on immigration, puts them right at the crosshairs of the opposition, and they start to hear about why it is not good to engage on immigration. We need to counter that. As simple things as thanking members when they speak out, as cheering them when they join us on these panels, sharing our own enthusiasm on our channels about what it means to be talking about these things, all of that can make a significant difference. It means showing our elected officials how you can work across the aisle. We've got to lead by example here and show them that it is possible to bring together Democrats and Republicans, as we've seen this morning, folks from various industries, as we've seen this morning, with a united message, and tell them that we will support any elected official, Democrat or Republican. The letter by their names means nothing to us, so far as they're standing up and wanting to do something here to get immigration reform actually passed. It is important, and again, I know sometimes it sounds simplistic, but all of the stories that are shared here, it is important to connect our elected officials to them. We have to arm them with the information and the stories that help them then combat when they get pressure from those who want them to do nothing. They need to be able to talk about these specific stories and explain to folks that what they're hearing in terms of opposition is actually not true, that it is not about being pro-immigrant or pro-America, but it is actually both. And that the futures of both America and immigrants are intertwined. It is when they are connected and when they are collaborating in partnership that we actually achieve the prosperity that all of us want to see and are yearning for, because we've seen so many of those examples already. And finally, as I've mentioned, and I'll echo again, it means being there at almost every inflection point. It's not enough to just be there at the last vote. It's literally at this point, it's every panel, it is every committee markup, it is almost every time they're on the news. We have got to show these elected officials that we support them, arm them with our stories, and tell them that we will be there at every inflection point. We know that many people will say that this cannot be done. It is literally the same thing that we heard when we were able to achieve the historic criminal justice reform that we saw in 2018. Everyone said it was impossible until they achieved the 80 votes they got in the Senate floor. This can be done if we can show folks, again, how to work together, but it will take our time and our work to do that. It doesn't just magically happen. Again, I will rely on Caesar and Mario here. I know that they can tell us how much work goes into every one of those meetings. And so as coalition partners, as members of the communities, we have also got to be committed to truly showing that support, trusting each other, and elevating our own stories even when they are not ours, but simply sharing somebody else's. Those steps help us get the incremental reforms we're talking about here, like dreamers, like farm workers, like TPS, like essential workers. And if we start to rally around those specific reforms, that is how you then create the momentum to move to the other parts of the immigration system that we know we all want to see reformed as well. That call for bipartisanship must be clear. I know we are committed to doing it. I know ABIC, Impact Fund, and all of you that we have interacted with on this call are also committed to that work. And so I thank you for doing all of that. And I'm excited for the work ahead of us. Thank you, Al.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Kathy, is that you there?
Yep. Thank you so
Okay,
much,
great.
everybody.
Well,
Thank you to our panelists.
I wanted to close by saying the following. Never in our history, and I've been involved in this now for a good 15 years, has there been as good a chance to do this as there is now. Some people that are pessimists because of the past failures point to those failures. Let me add how different this is. President Bush himself told me when immigration reform failed in his second term in office that he just waited too long, that presidents only have so much political capital, and by the time he got around to this, he just didn't have the supporting Congress to get it accomplished. President Obama said almost the same thing. He had lost a lot of, or invested, I should say, a lot of political capital after the passage of ACA, the healthcare bill, and there wasn't enough there to get immigration passed. This time around, it's been introduced in the president's first 100 days in office. This is one of his very highest priorities to pass. The change also from the previous efforts is that never in our history have the American people been so united on a bipartisan way in wanting immigration reform. That's been the result of a lot of efforts of people getting more and more informed. And so we now have a population of about 70% of Americans who want to get this done. And that's going to be incredibly helpful. And then lastly, I wanted to add that we should not take anything for granted in terms of where someone's going to vote. There are those who early on will say they favor this, and that's wonderful. And then there are those who say they don't. But I've seen many times before where a no vote becomes a yes vote with persuasion, with solid points of view, and with the participation of important people on a bipartisan basis like we've had here. So I'm very encouraged, and I look forward to working with you to get this success. Thank you very, very much for participating. And now, Kathy, I think we're headed towards our next panel of speakers.
Thank you so much, Chairman, and thank you very much to our panelists for joining us today. Next, I would like to introduce our Miami-Dade County Mayor with a message for us, Daniella Levine Cava.
Ours is a community rich in culture that has been shaped by a generation of immigrant families. Miami-Dade County has benefited so much from this heritage, and we must be the leading advocates for the rights of all of those who have come to this land in search of greater opportunity. I want to first thank the Impact Fund and the American Business Immigration Coalition for hosting today's summit to advance our bipartisan vision for immigration reform in the United States. Every day, lawmakers representing the residents of Miami-Dade County are working on bipartisan solutions that the vast majority of Americans want. We celebrate the contributions of immigrants who have built Florida into a global economic powerhouse. Their role powering agriculture, restaurants, tourism, and more, and their contributions for building a better life for all. As it currently stands, our immigration system just doesn't work, and it forces good people to circumvent it to save their families from unimaginable horrors. America's legal immigration system must be improved and streamlined to bring it into the 21st century. It's time to move us forward and write the next chapter of America's story in line with our common values by resetting and rebuilding our immigration system with an earned path to citizenship for our dreamers, our TPS holders, essential immigrant workers, and countless families who have long waited for a lasting legislative solution. In addition to helping us live up to our national values, immigration reform is a key to the health of our economy. More than 70% of undocumented immigrants are essential workers on the front lines of pandemic recovery in agriculture, healthcare, and more, and they are critical to rebuilding our economy. An earned path to citizenship for 11 million people would boost the county's GDP by $1.5 trillion over 10 years. Here in Florida, immigrants make up more than a quarter of our workforce. These are our neighbors, our co-workers, our local business owners, our taxpayers, and they deserve to be treated fairly by the country to which they have contributed so much. I want to thank all of those participating in the conference for your incredible work you're doing every day to rebuild an America consistent with our commonly held values. And I'm looking forward to continuing this fight with each and every one of you.
Thank you so much to our Miami-Dade mayor for that. And thank you very much to everybody who has joined us today. As we start winding up today, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce two people who have been longtime champions for the immigrant community. They are friends, even though they are on two different sides of the aisle. And I'm really, really honored to have both of you today. We've got Manny Diaz, who is the new chairman of the Florida Democratic Party, and former Senator Rene Garcia, who is the existing chairman of the Miami-Dade County Republican Party. Thank you so much to both of you. And I would like to invite you to have a conversation today as friends. And my question to both of you is, what is the way forward to build bridges and to advance bipartisan immigration solutions? Thank you so much.
Manny? You go first, right? Take yourself off of mute and you go first. Because I'm not going to take this. You go.
Well, first of all, Kathy, thank you for the invitation. Let me repeat what I always say, and that's the tremendous amount of admiration and respect that I have for our leader, Mike Fernandez, and the incredible job that he's doing in this and so many areas where he has really become a pillar in this community on a number of causes and a number of important issues of national importance, including this one. I also want to thank Paul DeMary and my fellow board members, and of course you, Kathy, and Rebecca, and what you do every day for your respective organizations. You've done certainly a great job today, putting together a really, really distinguished group of bipartisan leaders on this very important issue. And Rene, it's really great to join you. I guess because of COVID, we haven't really seen each other physically for some time. Indeed, as Kathy said, we have been friends for many years. And one of the things I've always admired about you is that I truly believe that you put the interests of people first over any kind of partisanship. As Al Cardenas said a little bit ago, I'm also very excited that President Biden chose this issue at this time as one of his top priorities, giving us a better shot at having success on this than we've had in the last few cycles. This is truly, I think, our best opportunity to help these new Americans. We have failed them before, and we cannot afford to fail them again. Unfortunately, we all know that Washington is very well known for its partisan bickering, but I think this is an issue that can truly unite us, and we can truly succeed. And I think, Rene, you and I represent that possibility. We may have differences on other issues, but we are certainly, locked in arms on this one. And the good news too is that I think the American people are united as well. For the first time in Gallup's 55 years of polling on this subject, they have found that more Americans support increasing immigration rather than decreasing it. In fact, the number of people in favor of decreasing has plummeted from 50% now to 28%. Last year, 77% of Americans called for immigration a good thing. And, and then you look at who we're talking about, 11 million human beings who have lived here at least 10 years. 62% have lived here at least 10 years. 21% have lived here at least 20 years. 5 million children under 18 years of age who have at least one undocumented parent. And 4 million of those have been born here, who are in fact already citizens. These 11 million human beings are not going home. They are home. And Americans' sense of decency is not going to lead us ever to implement any kind of police measures to extract these individuals, these human beings from their communities. And then I'll close with this. Our per capita immigration rate today is close to zero, as it's closer to zero as it has ever been. And I heard some of the prior speakers talk about, the economic impact of some of these things, and the fact that right now our declining birth rate, our population retiring at a rate of 10,000 people per day is going to create a Medicare and Social Security system that is unsustainable without a workforce that is replenished by immigrants. And I truly believe that this steady influx that we've had of new immigrants will enable the U.S. economy to regain its rightful place as the world's largest economy. So I'm really proud to be a part of this effort. I'm really proud to join my friend Rene in this effort, because this is the right time and we will get it done. Thank you.
Mayor, it really is awesome to see you. And I couldn't agree with you more. First of all, I just want to thank everyone and Mike Fernandez and Kathy and the board for putting this bipartisan group together, because this is what this country is missing. It really is. It's this bipartisanship, having a conversation on issues that we can both parties can agree. And Mayor, I couldn't agree with you more. This is one of the issues that we all can agree. But unfortunately, both parties have used this as a political pawn for whatever reasons. If it's for the war, to get more money out of the budget, whatever the case may be. It's unfortunate we haven't been able to resolve, especially the issue with DACA. And I think when we look at the path forward, I think it's incumbent that we do come together as a nation, that we do come together as a party. And look, there's no doubt that, truth be told, I wanted to reach out to the mayor when he became chairman, but I realized that I'm going to be competing with him in a couple of months. So I said, let me not reach out to him yet, because we are friends. We are good friends. I go, hell, this is a formidable battle that I'm going to have in a couple of months. Even here locally, and he's doing it at the state level, but no doubt about that. But yes, we do have to have these conversations and not be afraid for he and I to come together and talk about where we can agree. And yes, there will be battles in the future, but we do all agree that the issue with the DACA recipients and the TPS, these are issues that both parties can agree. And I think we have to section them out and fix those issues without complicating it with everything else that Washington wants to put in. And I think that's where we have to work on. And as Republicans, I'll tell you this, I think the path forward is, Will Weatherford, by the way, you've had a great panel, great group of people here today, and people who I admire deeply, from Jeb Bush to Waldo Padron and Will Weatherford. Speaker Weatherford made a mention about we need to use, how do you conquer fear? And that's through hope and love. And you're talking to someone who really believes in that, because I started up my own organization called Hope, helping our people every day, because I believe in the act of compassion and giving back. But one thing that I think is missing is education, and speak to the individual basis as to what they hear, what they will hear. I'll give you a perfect example. When we talk about driver's licenses in the state of Florida, and I proposed a legislation in Tallahassee, we tried to get driver's license for undocumented individuals in the state. And everyone's saying, oh, what do you do when you're going? This is not right. You're trying to give them a path, you're trying to give them legalization. But when you start having the conversation about the economics of it and the impact of it to all of us who have insurance, and the fact that these individuals cannot get car insurance because they don't have a driver's license, what that does, it raises all of our insurances. And that's the message that I sent out. Even though the legislation did not pass, I always believe that through education and having the intestinal fortitude to move forward, we can do that. That's how you do it. And then the other thing that we need to, on the education part, where Democrats and Republicans need to start, if we're going to fix this immigration issue, is we need to stop painting each other as one or the other. They paint Republicans as people who hate immigrants, who do not want anything to do with immigrants. We want a complete border closure that no one comes in. But then we as Republicans paint Democrats as, you know what, these are folks who don't care about the country, they just want to allow everyone into the country, and it's the cost, they don't care how much it costs, and give these individuals all these social services at what cost. Until we start having the intestinal fortitude and standing up to our own party and saying, no, let's listen to the other side. What are they saying? What do they mean by that? And do the same thing for us. Then I think that's how we can start fixing the immigration issue, especially to the people that needed the DACA recipients and these TPS, the folks on TPS. And look, I congratulate Biden, what he did with the Venezuelans, So I congratulate him, but I really do hope that now the opportunity presents itself that we do reach across the aisle and try to make sure that this is a bipartisan solution when we look at the issue of immigration. I think, Manny, I think that's the way, I mean, I know you're nodding your head. I think that's, if we're going to get something done, it's just, we have to do it within our own parties and reflect and then listen to the other side. And that's how you can come to the middle ground, because otherwise we're going to keep on pawning this to the next generation. These forced DACA recipients are never going to have any resolution to their immigratory status in this country.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much to both of you. You're people that I deeply admire for being principled, for caring about human beings. I'm sure that our state is in a better place under your leadership. And I want to thank both of you so much for joining us today.
Not until I battle him and I win. I'm going to beat him.
Hey, Rene, anytime you want to come over, I got the application form right here.
No, I'm going. Okay, don't do that. Don't do that to me here.
God bless everybody. Thank you.
God bless. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank a lot of the organizations that have helped us by co-hosting with us today, including the Florida Chamber of Commerce, the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration, the Office of New Americans, Americans for Prosperity. And thank you so much to all of you for your support. I want to recognize a few people who are not speaking, but we are honored to have you with us today. Our Impact Board members, including Mr. Dave Lawrence, who's the chairman of the Children's Movement, also the former editor and publisher of the Miami Herald, Aida Levitan with the Levitan Group, and I want to acknowledge President Gregory Hale, the president of Broward College. Thank you so much for being with us today, President Hale. And, I think that this has just really been an inspiring group of people. We have so much more in common than we think. Immigration issues are complex, but what we see poll after poll is that there are at least a few areas that the majority of American voters agree. Dreamers, TPS, farm workers, and essential workers. For the sake of our food supply, for our healthcare system, for the sake of our quality of life, we must bring our immigration system into the 21st century. We are hopeful that leaders like Senator Rubio, Senator Rick Scott, along with our Florida congressional delegation, will step up and step forward in joining us and the overwhelming majority of Americans to support common sense, bipartisan immigration reform for Florida to recover, rebuild, and thrive. Thank you so much, everybody.